So, is ayahuasca or any psychedelic the key to deep healing and transformation? Or is it just all another illusion wrapped in jungle mysticism and accelerated personal development? Well, I've been there. I lived with a shaman in Ecuador several times. I drank the brew, I saw the visions, I had the downloads, I purged, I cried. But did it heal me? Well, today I want to share with you my personal experience with plant medicine, the problems I see in the hype around it all, and who should or maybe shouldn't do it. Plus, if you're thinking about doing it, I will tell you how to approach it wisely so you don't have to waste your time or worse, make things harder for yourself. So let's get real about psychedelics and ayahuasca beyond the hype. So several years ago, I traveled to Ecuador and worked one-on-one with a shaman. He was amazing. It was not a big retreat, no large group ceremonies, just me and him. And I lived with his family. I did this twice. I ate with them and I played with their kids. And for a week each time, I fully immersed myself in the experience. We sat in ayahuasca and San Pedro ceremonies. And, looking back, I got a lot out of it. I had some amazing, huge, life-changing insights around my family of origin. I experienced moments of complete bliss and connection to the natural world and the universe. And I went through hell and heaven and back several times. And the problem was, though, I got a few things about plant medicine very, very wrong. A lot of people, including me back then, they think that ayahuasca or psychedelics are some magic pill for healing and that they will erase their trauma and fix all their problems and turn them into some sort of, enlightened beings maybe. But that's just not how it works. So the first thing I want to share with you touches on managing expectations, because ayahuasca and psychedelics are not a cure. They're not your savior. They're not your rescuer. These substances are tools. They're mirrors. They reveal things to you. They give you insights and new perspectives, and they will show you your shadow parts. But they don't do the work for you. They will not heal you. Many people drink ayahuasca or go on mushroom retreats expecting instant healing, which is sort of what I did. I later realized that this in itself was a trauma response, expecting something or someone to fix me quickly, in a week or 2 weeks. And so lots of people assume when they're doing like ayahuasca ceremonies, they will be healed off of their traumas, but the medicine merely exposes them for you to process. And even experienced psychonauts, people who've done dozens and loads of ceremonies, they still often struggle with human emotions and challenges in life. And this reminds me of, I think this was maybe 5 years ago, and I was dating a woman, and she had done something like 60 or 70 ayahuasca ceremonies. But man, did she still have massive issues and unresolved trauma. I did too, but whoa, I was like, wow, you've done all these ceremonies, but how come you're still struggling so much? And I realized much later on that there was so much bypassing going on. And so while these substances can be powerful tools for healing, their benefits depend entirely on how they're used and what changes you make afterwards. Which brings me to my next point, namely the problem with spiritual bypassing. Many people go and do ceremonies or sign up for these retreats only to come back to their daily life, and nothing actually changes or shifts. They return to their old environments, their toxic relationships, their bad habits, expecting lasting change, but you actually have to actively make a change. And I didn't really get that point at all, to be honest. I basically expected life to simply be different. And looking back, I was so naive, but it also shows how little I understood about the healing process. And the thing is, what you do after the psychedelic experience or the ceremony or the retreat matters way more than the experience itself. If anything, this is probably the most important message in this video. Now, the next thing is I see a big issue with chasing peak experience in the psychedelics and plant medicine space. So, I mean, one of the biggest traps in the psychedelic world is chasing the next high, the next intense experience. And chasing peak experiences, coming from someone who has a lot of experience with that, is like trying to live off fireworks all the time. They're intense, they're beautiful, but they're fleeting, and they leave you hungry for more and more without real sustenance. And as in my case, it can be a pattern that's just being repeated over and over and over again. And all we do is stay stuck in this cycle of dopamine addiction, really. And so healing isn't about peak experiences. It's about what happens in the valleys. And as they say, chop wood, carry water. Healing happens in the day-to-day healing work. And lastly, there is a real danger of nervous system dysregulation, because psychedelics can be in and of itself, or the experiences can be very dysregulating, especially for people with PTSD, unresolved trauma, or those with generally a fragile nervous system. And a lot of times what I see in these retreats is that there's back-to-back ceremonies, and that can be really overwhelming rather than healing. They can totally knock us outside of our window of stress tolerance. So no wonder, some people leave these retreats and can't get their life back together, or they're stuck in a sort of psychosis. And you hear these stories over and over again, and it makes sense when you look at it from a nervous system and trauma perspective. And oftentimes there isn't enough support for people who are dysregulated, and that means that they don't get the help that they actually need. And the nervous system, it doesn't get regulated through ceremonies or psychedelic experiences. Our nervous systems get regulated in our daily lives, and it takes often a lot of work and dedication, because it's about creating a life that supports a regulated nervous system and about committing to ongoing deep healing processes that have nothing to do with peak experiences. However, there are definitely good reasons why doing ayahuasca or psychedelics might be a really good idea and actually really worth it. And maybe you're wondering at this point, if it's not a magic fix, then why do it at all, right? And now I still think these medicinal substances have their place, absolutely. I'm very grateful for my experiences, no doubt about it. And I do think that I will engage in more experience of that kind in the future. I have nothing planned, but who knows what will happen. And I'm still open to, doing San Pedro, more than ayahuasca actually, or maybe doing a mushroom retreat. And one big reason why I think doing plant medicine or psychedelics can be a really good idea is, sometimes when we feel really stuck and we're just kind of going around in circles and we feel like nothing is helping, sometimes we need a disruptor, something to sort of shake us out of old patterns. And so ayahuasca and plant medicine and psychedelics, they can be a powerful mirror for the unconscious. They can bring up material we wouldn't access otherwise. And they can bring up our deepest shadows, our suppressed memories, forgotten truths, and they can give us a new perspective on ourselves that can be extremely valuable. And besides that, they can truly be a catalyst for change if they're used correctly. Because the real value, as mentioned, of plant medicine isn't the trip or the experience or the ceremony itself. It's what you do with what you experience and with what you learn. And if you use it as a starting point for deeper work, it can be incredibly powerful. And so if you are thinking about, going on a retreat, doing psychedelics, here's a few things that I wish I had known before I got onto that journey. Number one, prepare yourself beforehand. Really, I highly recommend you do a fair amount of inner work first, that you set up a meditation practice, that you have a breathwork practice, a daily practice to regulate your nervous system, that you maybe have engaged in conscious connected breathing, transformational breathwork sessions, just so you know what it's like to experience an altered state of consciousness. I'd highly recommend working with a therapist and just really diving deeper into trauma healing if that's something that's been showing up for you. And make sure you have a fairly stable nervous system and that you're already quite familiar with your history, your biography, with at least some of your traumas. Because if your nervous system is dysregulated, psychedelics can make things a lot worse. And if you're not familiar yet with what happened to you in the past or maybe in your childhood, then psychedelics or plant medicine can bring things up to the surface, and they might just really push you off balance. And if you're interested in nervous system regulation and using the breath, then check out my Breathwork and Nervous System Foundations course. I will leave a link to it below the video. Number two is that I recommend that you have a strong support in place. You really need resources in your life if you're considering going on a retreat, doing plant medicine, psychedelics. You need a solid support system. You need a fair amount of stability in your life and emotional regulation tools, because that is what you will need when you come home. Because a lack of stability and emotional regulation tools and a lack of just a support network can really feel dysregulating after those intense experiences. And number three is to take integration seriously. Plant medicine ceremonies and psychedelics, as mentioned, they're really only the beginning. The real healing happens afterwards. And these substances, they open the door to healing, but long-term work is really necessary to unpack and process the insights and the experiences that you've had. So I highly recommend that you work with an integration coach, with a somatic therapist or a guide, and have some ongoing daily regulation practices in place. Because it really, truly is, and I can't say this often enough, it is about the day-to-day inner work and the day-to-day regulation that will really make a difference. And what's important to know is that nervous system regulation, it doesn't happen in ceremonies. It happens as you chop wood and carry water every single day. And lastly, tip number 4 is to choose your setting wisely, to choose your retreat wisely and the person that you're going to work with. If possible, maybe you can find someone that works one-on-one. I personally benefited so much from that. I didn't want to go into a group retreat. I felt like it would be too overwhelming. And for me, it was the best choice to work one-on-one with a shaman. And if you want to be in really good hands when it comes to preparation, the actual ceremony or experience, and the integration process, then you might want to consider psychedelic-assisted therapy over casual ceremonies or retreats. All right, so here's the bottom line. Ayahuasca and psychedelics, they're not the answer, but they can be an amazing tool if you approach them with clarity, with groundedness, and the right support. And so before you decide to sit in ceremony or go on a retreat, you might want to ask yourself, am I willing to do the real work afterwards? Am I ready for that? And what can I do to integrate the lessons from my experience? It's fairly important to think about integration beforehand and not afterwards, because the most important part of the journey is what happens when the visions and the insights and the dopamine fade. And so I am curious, have you done psychedelics or plant medicine before? And if so, what was your experience like? If not, what makes you curious about it? What questions do you have? So do drop your comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions. And if you want to learn how to regulate your nervous system and integrate deep healing work, check out this video. All right, take care, and I will see you soon. Bye.